Part 17. Infinite Doomsday Start Draws Luodu Mechanic. Author, Shanmao Aichiji. Chapter 161. Ruger continued to help Rog stabilize the front line, while Tia couldn't help but pull down the high-speed grenade launcher on her shoulder and fired at the monsters. Her shoulder armor gun mount launcher has been improved by Ruger many times. It is smaller and lighter, and the speed of retraction and release has also increased a lot. Now it has basically become Tia's main weapon before she transforms into Iron Man. In addition to the increasingly difficult to see the bottom of the ammunition in her small bag, it really makes the attribute of Bomb Girl more and more vivid. Soon, the first batch of nightmare monsters in the underground maze were completely destroyed by the nightmare bombing of the Bomb Girl. After successfully solving these guys, Ruger calculated the income and expenditure while doing some ear health exercises for his unfortunate ears, but found that the 4 Rogs over there seemed a little depressed. Being selected by Sarah from hundreds of Rogs, the 4 of them were still very complacent about the fact that their combat power was recognized by their superiors. In their opinion, it is not an exaggeration to say that they represent the highest level of rogue soldiers. But even these 4 elites among the elites, the best of the best, could not quickly resolve the charge of only 7 or 8 monsters. Although they also understood that those monsters were nightmare level, in a 1-on-1 close combat, I am afraid that any of them would not be able to last for a few rounds. But this extremely high psychological expectation would not be comfortable when it met with extremely poor actual results. In addition, everything is afraid of comparison. Comparing people is really infuriating. The 4 of them worked together to barely kill a nightmare monster, but the 2 over there, any one of them could kill it instantly. It seemed that those nightmare monsters that gave them a headache were still small fish that could be killed at will in their eyes. Tia was fine. They all knew that it was a genius Nephilim who grew up with their boss. Comparing with such a person is just asking for trouble. But that man is so powerful. It's simply unreasonable. Isn't he just a lost one? Can ordinary people kill those nightmare monsters in seconds? Even if he has a super lost one weapon, he can't just kill them in seconds, right? Besides, he just took a gun later, which looks not much different from HK-417. The rogues were inexplicably depressed here, and Sarah soon discovered their abnormality. However, she did not comfort her subordinates, but half-jokingly said to Ruger and the others, "You 2 are still so strong, worthy of being the masters who rescued me from the abyss." This is true, but it is somewhat flattering. Her flattery is not to make Ruger do something, but to hint to the rogues over there that they should understand that the 2 people in front of them are not ordinary people. They even rescued your boss from the crack in the ground. Even your boss has to thank them, so don't be depressed blindly. If you want to compete with these 2 guys, that is at least something that only Sarah, the rogue commander, can do. The 4 rogues are not experienced enough but have great potential. This also means that they are quick-witted and flexible. So Sarah only needs to say the sentence, and they immediately understand and look much better than before. But the psychological problem has been solved, but the practical problem still exists. For example, the problem of HK-MP5 and HK-G36 being too weak. The rogue holding the G36 is okay. It can be seen from her switching the speed selector directly to single shot that she has found the most efficient way to fight. Giving up continuous shooting, improving accuracy, and ensuring that every bullet can hit the enemy's vital points is her most correct choice at the moment. In this way, even if the penetration of small caliber rifle bullets is not enough for nightmare level monsters, it can still be compensated by shooting at the vital points. But the girl holding the MP5 is uncomfortable. She was actually the one with the most stable mentality and the highest shooting accuracy among the 4. However, even so, she failed to kill an enemy, and even failed to make the enemy stiff. If she had not fired with her companions, giving her room to make up for the lack of strength, she would have long ago been unable to bear the weakness of the weapon in her hand. The 9mm pistol bullet only had a few hundred joules of kinetic energy, which could not break the defense of these nightmare-level monsters. Seeing that she had become the most useless person, the little girl's eyes turned red and she almost cried directly. Seeing this, Sarah hurried over to pat her shoulder, indicating that she had done a good job just now. The problem that affected her strength was the gun, not herself, so she didn't need to blame herself too much. As he spoke, the leader Rog turned his eyes to Ruger's face. Now it's good. Even the little girl who had just been persuaded to come down looked at someone with hope. The big eyes that were about to cry seemed to be able to speak, saying to Ruger, "Young master, save me. Stop looking at me like that, you two sisters." Ruger couldn't stand being looked at like that by the two beauties, so he quickly raised his hands and surrendered. "Tell me, what do you want?" Sarah adjusted her ponytail in a charming way, coughed lightly and said, "I have a deal here, are you interested? I'll use my sister's lost one weapon in exchange for yours." "Stop," Ruger knew what she was going to do, and quickly interrupted her before she could finish the second half of her sentence. "The deal is fine, but it can't be the same as before." "What? Don't you know that kind of full metal alchemy that can use monsters as raw materials to directly create Lost One's weapons?" Sarah immediately said in disapproval. "Don't be so stingy, it's just a performance of alchemy." The so-called full metal alchemy is the reason that Ruger used to explain to others that he could easily create Lost One's weapons. Of course, at this point, Tia knows what the essence of his so-called alchemy is. But Sarah and others don't know. "Hey, don't make it sound so easy," Ruger hurriedly explained. "Those monsters are indeed one of the materials I need for this alchemy, but I also need to provide other materials myself. I have limited other materials here, so I can't waste them at will." Hearing his words that basically rejected the deal, the beautiful girl Rog's eyes became red again. Seeing her like this, even Tia felt a little bit reluctant and secretly poked the soft layer at the joint of someone's armor. Ruger said hurriedly, "I'm not saying that we can't trade, I'm just saying that it's not enough to exchange that MP5 for HK417. However, I can provide a relatively fair trade item." As he said this, Ruger pretended to collect the bodies of several monsters, then gestured in the air a few times, roared, and turned out a long gun with his backhand. Picking up the rifle that looked like an elongated MP5, Ruger handed it to the Rog named Issa. "Ah, it's this one." The little girl exchanged the MP5 in her hand for the gun, looked at it carefully, and soon recognized the model. "This is exactly the HKG-3 automatic rifle that also fires the 762 caliber NATO full-power rifle bullet. This is also the prototype of the HK-MP5 submachine gun. Infinite Doomsday Start draws Luodu mechanic. Author, Shan Mao Ai-Chi-Ji. Chapter 162. G3 is a classic old gun. Google search reading. H/U0026K company quickly expanded a variety of modified guns including submachine guns, light machine guns, and sniper rifles through partial transformation based on the G3 rifle. HK-MP5 submachine gun, HK-21 general purpose machine gun, and even PSG-1 precision shooting rifle are all directly developed from the G3 system. G3 can be said to be the first leading actress of H/U0026K. I hope readers will remember our domain name Taiwan Novel Network rightward arrow. After replacing the G3 automatic rifle for Roger who used MP5, Ruger simply replaced the gun for Roger who used G36. This is also good. Now the ammunition used by the 5 people on Roger's side, including Sarah, has been replaced with 762 caliber full-power rifle bullets. 2 G3 automatic rifles, 1 HK-21 general-purpose machine gun, and 2 HK-417-16-inch barrel assault rifles. The only thing that has not changed is that they are still HK's light weapons. After changing weapons, Rog, who used to use the MP5, which has a very similar main structure and usage to the G3, also began to teach the one who used the G36 to adapt to this gun. After all, this is an old gun, and it cannot be compared with the new guns of the 21st century in terms of ergonomics. For example, this gun does not have an empty chamber hang-up function. If you empty the magazine and change the bullet, in order to ensure that there is no problem with loading the bullet, it is best to pull the bolt handle back to the hang-up position before changing the magazine. After completion, the bolt handle must be released from the hang-up position. Sometimes, in order to save trouble or the user has a special hobby, they will pat the receiver to release the bolt handle from the hang-up position. Of course, if you want to achieve the same effect, you can also change the order. First change the magazine, then pull the bolt handle back, pull it to the bottom without hanging it on the hanging position, and release it directly. The latter method is relatively rarely used, mainly because of the previously mentioned problem that it is easy to cause problems, which is caused by the structure of the semi-free bolt roller delayed locking. Even the MP5 sister had problems when demonstrating the latter method to the G36 sister. The MP5 she is used to using has no problem using this method, because the MP5 uses 9mm PA bullets. The length of this pistol bullet is only 19mm. The magazine loaded with this bullet can be held tightly with one hand. However, the G3 uses 7 bullets, and the magazine side width is only higher than 51mm. This magazine is not impossible to hold with one hand, but it is difficult to use strength. The bolt locking caused by the ball delayed locking requires a lot of strength to push the magazine up. As a result, the MP5 sister took the G3 magazine and pushed it up from the lower receiver 3 times before finally pushing the magazine into place. So the next time she pulled the bolt handle to the rear stop position, the bolt lock was open, and she could easily put the magazine into position. Then release the bolt handle, and the first bullet at the top of the magazine can be safely and quickly sent into the chamber. To be honest, Ruger had never used the G3, and he didn't know it had this problem. However, just when Ruger thought that the two sisters over there had adapted to the new firearms and could continue to go deeper into the underground maze, the two of them actually studied the mechanical sights of the G3. Okay, Ruger had studied the problem of mechanical sights before, so he wanted to show off. However, he just took 2 steps and was scared back by the words of the MP5 sister. Look, its mechanical sight uses a rotary drum type, with 4 gears on it. The last 3 gears are all peephole type, and the first 100mm uses a notch type. If we use it, we can just use this notch. Good guy, there is such a thing? Ruger quickly took out a G3 and fiddled with it in the logistics space, only to find that the rear side of this guy was indeed a rotating drum structure, with a gear every 90 degrees, a total of 4. The front sight is a typical column type. Comparing it again, even the MP5 and the early version of HK416 use the same machine sight. In this way, it is no wonder that the MP5 sister is so familiar with this thing. While Ruger was fiddling with this thing, he felt that the designer of this thing was really a genius. This drum-style sight, from the side, is tilted. In this way, the human eye can only see the highest position, and then see the column-style sight in front of the gun, without worrying about other gears blocking the line of sight. After this time, the two finally completed their familiarity with the new gun and signaled Ruger to move forward. Ruger had a good impression of this Roger named Isa who used to use MP5. Hearing this, he couldn't help but smile at her, and then turned around and walked forward first. He could hear the warning of the old man who was conducting the investigation in front, wearing a self-made Iron Man armor. There was no warrior-type Nephilim like Minerva who could naturally serve as a secondary defense in the team. In order to prevent the previous incident of 417 Bella rushing too far and being besieged by monsters from happening again, he had to lead the way in front. As soon as he left, he heard the four ROG sisters in the back row start to chatter and play there. The core content was whether ROG would take action on the MP5 sister. ROG thought to himself that he was a gentleman, so why was he regarded as a pervert? As a result, it turned out that Anya, who had been working without any effort, had come to ROG's side at some point, fanning the flames and adding fuel to the fire. In the end, even Sarah couldn't stand it anymore, so she grabbed her ears and dragged her out, handing her over to her step-grandmother, Tia, for strict discipline. Even so, the blatant discussion of the four ROGs was suppressed by their superiors, but they still whispered in each other's ears during the journey. Counting the time spent on handling things in ROG Town, plus the time spent on rebuilding the second shelter, it has been almost 20 days since he went down the maze again. Such a long time is enough for ROG to improve all his attributes to 10 points. This naturally includes the perception attribute. As a result, the private conversations of the sisters that the ROGs thought no one heard were heard by ROG. G36, who had just received a favor from MP5, must have spoken for MP5, but HK21 spoke just like the gun she used, bang bang bang, bang bang bang. Finally, 417 Bella always added a final word at the critical moment, which really beat the two fire assaulters, using submachine guns and assault rifles, to death. Ruger pricked up his ears to listen to their quarrels, and the more he listened, the more he sighed. Could it be that when these rogues chose weapons, they all followed their personalities? Fortunately, this embarrassing scene did not last long. The dark shooters and bloody sheepheads who emerged in front of the maze rescued MP5. This time, Ruger did not use the rapid-fire cannon directly. In addition to the excessive noise, he also had to consider the cost issue. As he said when he quarreled with the paladins in Rogue Town, the exchange price of this shell was not low, and it even cost 5 points without discount. At this price, even if the enemy he was dealing with was a nightmare-level monster that could earn him 40+ points per head, he still felt that the ammunition was a bit of a loss. After all, he was calculating carefully, but Tia didn't care about that when throwing bombs. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Infinite Doomsday Start draws Luodu mechanic. Author, Shan Mao Ai-chi-ji. Chapter 163. All in all, even special ammunition, such as tungsten core armor-piercing bullets, is the most cost-effective version of the shotgun. However, today, the power of the shotgun can't keep up, so Ruger changed his main hand weapon. After many attempts, he finally chose the G28 Precision Marksman Rifle as his main weapon before pulling out all kinds of big guns. Of course, ammunition generally uses 7 caliber armor-piercing bullets. The original price of this kind of bullet is 1 point for 10 rounds. Although it is much more expensive than ordinary bullets, it is relatively cheap among armor-piercing bullets. What's more, Ruger now uses raw materials as discount coupons for such products and buys them at a discount, which further reduces the cost. Even if he uses them to fire continuously on the general machine, he won't feel too distressed. What? Then why didn't he just use the general machine? Oh, he just doesn't feel distressed at all, but it's not that he doesn't feel distressed at all. In addition, another advantage of using G28 is that the shooting frequency can be infinitely close to that of Rogers, so you can cooperate in a dozen. A dark shooter similar to Fallen Rogue needs at least 2 rounds of 762 caliber armor-piercing bullets or 6 rounds of ordinary bullets of the same caliber to hit the vital part of the head in a short period of time at a distance of 20 meters before he can be killed. Counting Sarah herself, there were a total of 5 Roger present, all using 762 caliber weapons, which happened to be 5 rounds of ordinary ammunition. However, they were divided into 3 groups to cover each other and attack in coordination. The MP5 sister and the G36 sister have automatically formed a team using two G3s. On the other side, two ROGs, HK21 and HK417, form a team. Sarah herself also used high-end armor-piercing bullets to form her own team. The tungsten core armor-piercing bullet used by Ruger is the new M993 that can be redeemed from a vending machine. But Sarah used old M61 hardened steel core armor-piercing bullets collected from various lost ruins. This type of ammunition is much cheaper than the Ruger type, and one point can even be exchanged for 50-200 rounds. If you use this kind of ammunition to deal with nightmare monsters, it will be between 3 and 4 rounds. So the situation on the court presented a very interesting state. That is, as long as any two groups of ROGs complete the attack on a nightmare monster, Luodu can use a tungsten core armor-piercing bullet to take away the monster. As a result, with the help of Roger, he gained a large amount of points. Although the ROGers quickly saw that he was deliberately fighting for the fatal final shot, no one really cared. On the one hand, there is no system on them. Even if they grab the last shot, they will not get kill points given by the system. On the other hand, Luger had already used the Full Metal Alchemy rhetoric to explain his reasons for harvesting points to Sarah and others. For Luger, he gets points by killing monsters, and then uses the points to buy arms in the system store. But for Sarah and ROG, he is collecting the soul power of monsters to store alchemical materials. When he collects materials to a certain extent, he can use Full Metal Alchemy to create weapons of the lost. That is, guns. Therefore, ROG not only didn't care about his last-hitting behavior, but even actively cooperated with his rhythm, deliberately leaving him with a monster with residual health when he could shoot. It's just that ROG doesn't have other ideas. After replacing the gun with G3, the MP5 sister and the G36 sister quickly mastered the best way to use this gun after a short initial period of adaptation. The accuracy of this gun itself is not bad. Of course it is based on automatic rifle standards rather than precision marksman rifle standards, and its power is not bad. But its connectivity is not good enough. Of course, this is also a common problem with most automatic rifles that use full power rifle bullets. Even assault rifles that use intermediate power bullets or small caliber bullets have the same problem, but the severity varies. So while fighting, the two ROGs used the automatic rifle as a semi-automatic rifle. There is actually nothing wrong with this, and it is even a choice that is more adaptable to the current situation. But after fighting like this for a long time, the three ROGs who chose the same fighting style gradually moved closer to each other, and finally switched guns in their hands. That is, the PSG-1 lady let the two ROG sisters use the HK417 in her hand. It doesn't matter if it's not necessary. After using it, both of their eyes were straightened. When they had never used G3 before, they had no intuitive feeling about PSG-1 or HK417. After all, the usage and battlefield effects of continuous fire assault weapons and single-shot precision weapons are different. But after adapting to the use of G3, and then switching to the more advanced HK417, they were immediately fascinated by the silky and smooth feeling of using the latter. This is not to say that G3 is not good, but the experience of HK417 is too charming. This is not surprising at all. Products from the same company still use the same specifications of ammunition. Although even ammunition of the same caliber has improved with the changes of the times, the intuitive experience given to the user will not be too different. Under this premise, why would the same company still research new products? Well, no, that should actually be said. If the new product manufactured by the same company does not have significant advantages over the original product, why not just sell the original product? The logic is that simple. The experience of the HK417 in 2005 must be much better than the G3 in 1959, nearly 50 years ago. So, The beautiful rogue girls who had gone from frugality to luxury turned their heads and looked at Ruger in front of them with a little greed in their eyes. Well, the word greed is a bit heavy, should it be called yearning? Yearning. It seems that the taste is a bit wrong. In short, they remembered the deal between their commander Sarah and Ruger before, and remembered his unique alchemy. Then, they deliberately cooperated with Ruger so that he could accumulate more materials so that the dagger would be revealed. Poor Ruger in front, he had already put on the Iron Man armor helmet after the gunshot. The 2 layers of sound insulation and noise prevention system stacked together can effectively prevent his sensitive ears from being injured by the sound of artillery. After all, his perception attribute is as high as 10 points. If it weren't for the 10 points of physical attribute, I'm afraid that a casual shout in his ear would make his ears bleed. However, his ears were protected after wearing the helmet, but he couldn't hear the plans of the rogues behind him. If he dared to seal his hearing on the battlefield, wasn't he afraid of being attacked by the enemy? Afraid, that's what he was afraid of. But he had a trump card, Old Noisy. With Old Noisy, a natural scout assistant, it was not easy for monsters to successfully sneak attack him. But Old Noisy would take the initiative to guard against monsters, but would not take the initiative to listen to the chats of the rogue girls. As a result, Ruger had no idea that the other side was calculating him. And he was still proud of his high success rate of supplementing the gun. As a result, when the enemies in this round were cleared, 2 rogues led by Sarah came to find him and showed their true colors, he couldn't help but take a deep breath. What? You also want to change your gun to HK-417? Infinite Doomsday Start Draws Luodu Mechanic. Author, Shanmao Aichiji. Chapter 164. Google search for reading. After hearing his words, the MP5 girl immediately nodded her head. She even glanced at Luger in a vague way, as if she was saying to him, "Did you have any thoughts about me just now? Well, it's not necessarily impossible. As long as you behave well, it's not impossible. Now is your chance to show off." Luge had never had any idea about her, so naturally he couldn't understand the meaning of this look. But Taya, who was watching with cold eyes and had even been prepared for this day, took a look at it. Luigi was still dazed, so she stepped forward to stop him. "Hey, didn't I tell you before that there is a limit to the number of times he can use alchemy in a day? You may not encounter anything later, so how can you waste your spells on something like this? Isn't the gun he just gave you powerful enough? I think you can shoot pretty well. Actually, you just want better firearms. It doesn't matter. When the task is completed, I will do it for you. Just in time, it's time for my alchemy workshop to open. Welcome to patronize me." What? Luger was completely stunned now. It's not because of anything else, it's mainly because of Tia's ability. Even the Cold War era light weapons like the G3 are difficult for her to make, let alone the HK-417, which has adopted a large number of modern processing techniques from the beginning of its design. To put it simply, Tia cannot make a precision firearm like the HK-417 on her own. However, seeing Tia's fake smile, but the look in her eyes that was actually about to kill someone, Luge couldn't help but swallowed his saliva, and swallowed the rest of his words together. In the end, he could only force out a smile to Sarah and Rog, indicating that what Tia said was what he said. Several Roger couldn't help but look at each other in shock when they saw this, but seeing Tia's cordial but determined attitude, they also understood that it would be difficult to blackmail their 2 guns this time, so they had to retreat. On the other side, Anya, who was standing outside watching the whole show, saw that the matter was settled, and couldn't help but complain casually. "What? Is your relationship just for a few lost weapons? What's the use of those things? Even if you want them, you only need the big thing on someone's back." What she said was in line with her usual thoughts, and she also expressed her recent thoughts. As someone who has disliked Taya since childhood, she naturally has no interest in the weapons of the lost. What's more, she is a mage. Unless she specializes in the ice system, otherwise she is naturally the Nephilim class that dislikes the weapons of the lost the most. Because of the heavy firepower in the weapons of the lost, it will naturally crowd out the ecological niche of mages, especially fire mages. However, a duel with Lugger also allowed her to see the tremendous power of the lost weapons. It's powerful, instantaneous, highly accurate, and consumes little physical energy, so it's simply not too beneficial. In particular, Ruger's 30mm rapid-fire cannon, which caused great pressure on her, has now become Anya's nightmare and the object of her deepest desires. Hearing what she said, Lugger almost laughed. Is this little girl really afraid of being beaten? Is this Stockholm Syndrome? Well, it seems that her own characteristics make her prone to this kind of disease. So before Taya could turn around and continue to teach her a lesson, Lugger walked over first, raised the rapid-fire cannon with his backhand, and gestured to her. What, you want this thing? No, no. Realizing that her soliloquy was heard by the two devils, Anya immediately tensed up nervously and stammered. Really? No. Lugger deliberately teased her. Actually, if you really want it, I might even give you a set. After all, you are mine, right? Akara knows that Anya is Ruger's granddaughter, Akara's personal bodyguards know it, Taya knows it, and Minerva also knows it. But except for these people and the two parties involved, it is kept confidential from everyone else. In the eyes of others, Anya was a prisoner of war of Lugger and others, but because she had a small relationship with Taya, she was treated leniently. After all, Akara thought Lugger's true origin was a bit scary. Although the theory of being trapped in a time gap and only recently able to escape is actually not enough compared to Ruger's real experience. So now in front of Sarah and Rog who don't know the inside story, Luge will not directly tell the relationship between the two. Of course, as the weaker party in this strange relationship, Anya didn't want him to mention it. Hearing what he said, Anya became even more nervous and subconsciously reached out to gag him. As a result, when I reached halfway out, I realized that he hadn't said the word, and I finally breathed a sigh of relief. But she acted like a frightened kitten, but she wanted to be as conspicuous as possible, and even Roger couldn't help but sneak up on her out of curiosity. This made Anya, who had just escaped a disaster, become nervous again. She couldn't help but look left and right, trying to find something that could deal with this matter. Only then did she recall the true meaning of Lugger's previous words. She subconsciously screamed, looked at Lugger in disbelief, and pointed to the rapid-fire cannon on his right shoulder. You, what did you say? You want to give me a set of that weapon? Really? Real? Ruger nodded. If you want, I can give it to you. Anya was overjoyed when she heard this, but after calming down, she looked at Ruger warily. What conspiracy do you have? Recently, she has been causing a lot of harmless little things. For example, deliberately putting air conditioning in the cooking stove, throwing ice cubes into hot porridge, or using electric sparks to burn someone's head while they are sleeping. These are all small tricks that are not very harmful but extremely insulting. She knew that if she used this method, the other party would be very angry, but would not use any severe punishment on her. But she didn't expect that the devil-like human had so many strange potions, and even more formulas than she, a part-time alchemist, who was a mage. What kind of potions make people itch for a whole day, can't stop laughing, or make the throat spit fire? He has endless potions. After being tricked for several days in a row, she finally calmed down. Of course, he was not that honest. He just chose to work without putting in any effort after the incident. Now, she was surprised to hear that Ruger was going to give her the weapon he had been dreaming about. Naturally, she also suspected that Ruger was going to do something bad to her again. Hey, What conspiracy can I have? Don't worry, I won't put itching powder on the handle of this thing, or put laughing agent on the ammunition. Ruger pretended to be righteous and said. Just tell me whether you want it or not. It's better not to, so I don't have to make it for you. Yes, I want it. If you really give it to me, I will definitely want it. Anya didn't care whether he had any other conspiracy or not, and she shouted loudly immediately. Infinite Doomsday Start draws Luodu mechanic. Author, Shan Mao Ai Chi. Chapter 165. Really, Lugger said with a smile, no problem, wait. Google search reading. Hey, what are you doing? Tia leaned close to his ear and asked quietly, you are not really going to give her a rapid-fire cannon, are you? Aren't you afraid that she will use that thing against you first? Hee, how could that be? I believe our Anya is an obedient and good child, Lugger said with a smile. Tisk, she. Obedient. Good child? Tia rolled her eyes when she heard this. She thought Lugger was lying. However, she was already familiar with Lugger's rhythm. When she heard him praising Anya, she knew that this guy probably didn't have a good idea, so she ignored him. She withdrew from Lugger, and the four rogues immediately came up with great interest. Well, just now I said I wanted to change 2 guns, but this guy refused to change on the grounds that there was a limit on the number of times alchemy was performed. Now he wants to make a cannon for his own prisoners of war? Isn't this too discriminatory? Even if none of the 4 rogues could reach the standard of fully awakened Nephilim, and could not compare to the genuine mage Nephilim, she was still a prisoner of war, wasn't she? The rogues were a little unconvinced and wanted to see how Ruger could make things for her with a clear conscience. Well, let him feel the resentment of 4 beauties. As soon as the 4 rogues surrounded them and stood still, the HK-21 girl in the front started to shoot, and blame them. But she shot for a long time before she found that all the shots were misses, and none of them hit. Because Ruger had entered the Do Not Disturb mode and was completely immune to verbal attacks. Under the gaze of the 4 rogues and a witch, Ruger first posed in an extremely strange posture that would not be possible under normal circumstances. As a result, his self-made Iron Man armor actually expanded like an inflated balloon in this strange posture, and the slowly opened back armor slowly revealed a hole for Ruger to put on and take off the armor. Lugger pulled out his 2 arms from the opened arm armor, and pressed them on the opened chest armor, like doing parallel bars, and lifted himself out of the whole armor, just jumping out of the back armor exit. In this way, about 5 seconds before and after, he got out of the homemade Iron Man armor. If there is an electronic chip to cooperate, this whole set of work can even be completed in 1 or 2 seconds. However, now there is magic radiation, he can only use this full mechanical mode. After taking off the Iron Man armor, he ignored the 5 pairs of interested eyes next to him, turned around to collect materials from the monster corpse, and refined it into a set of strange shoulder armor. Of course, this is just him simulating full metal alchemy. That shoulder armor is completely the work of the logistics space. It's not over after getting this thing. He took out a bunch of tools and started to knock on this shoulder armor. After a while, he actually installed a steel frame on this thing. Now, let alone the 5 pairs of eyes before, even the 2 pairs of eyes that had seen how he wore his homemade Iron Man armor couldn't help but look over curiously. He still didn't care about those things. He picked up the shoulder armor and checked it from front to back, left to right, and then nodded with satisfaction. Then he looked in the direction of the 5 women and waved to them. What do you mean? The 5 people looked at each other, not knowing what he meant by suddenly looking over. In the end, Anya was more familiar with him, and hesitantly raised her hand and pointed at herself. Then, I saw Ruger nodding his head over there. Well, this time it's right, Anya should go over quickly. It doesn't matter if she goes over, but before she can stand still, Ruger snaps the shoulder armor on her shoulders. As for whether she was physically injured, it was really not. But Anya was very hurt. It wasn't because she was treated like this by Ruger, but because she found that she was already familiar with Ruger's treatment. Under normal circumstances, if someone suddenly attacked her like this, her witch instinct would have released several defensive magics to freeze or eject the person. But now, even if Ruger arrogantly put a pair of shoulder armor on her, her instinct was not triggered. What does this mean? The beast in her heart has been tamed by Ruger. It's over, I'm not clean anymore. Anya was still crying here, but Ruger had already left her and ran back to the armor to jingle. A moment later, Anya just came to her senses and saw that guy waving at her again. At this point, she had no other choice but to walk over again. But she heard that guy say lightly, "Come on, lift this cannon yourself and put it on your shoulder." What the hell? So this guy has always been planning this? He said he would make another cannon for Anya, but it turned out to be just a gun mount. In the end, it was still the one that Ruger had originally on his shoulder. Now, not only did Tia and Sarah lose interest, but even the 4 Micro-Rogers dispersed in boredom. Only Anya was left, still in the look of being played with, obeying Ruger's orders like a zombie, and putting the 30mm rapid-fire gun on her shoulder. Then, after another series of clanging and banging by Ruger, the gun was finally fixed on her. "Okay, don't you want to try this gun? Try it now." Anya was still mostly numb at this time. But in fact, she also listened to Ruger's words. At that moment, her mind, which was as frozen as 1,000 miles, seemed to be lit up by a night star. "It seems like we can give it a try. If we get this thing, can't we deal with that guy?" No, that guy is very vicious, maybe he has some bad ideas to frame me. But, shouldn't we make good use of the opportunity we have got? Anyway, let's try it first. After we master the use of this thing, we can decide whether to deal with him. After thinking about this, Anya seemed to be in a state of numbness, as if the winter snow met the spring breeze, the ice and snow melted, and the earth revived. Her expression also turned from a numb state to a bit of brilliance. Then, "Shall I try it over there?" she asked Ruger tentatively. "Well, okay." Bang. Anya fired a shell and immediately roared in her heart. I got fooled. That guy really did it on purpose. There was no way, except for Tia, Ruger had never explained to anyone else that he had 2 layers of noise-canceling headphones. Anya's posture of carrying the rapid-fire cannon is the same as Ruger's, both of them use the rack on their shoulders to support the main body of the rapid-fire cannon, just like carrying a recoilless cannon or a rocket launcher. But unlike the rocket launcher and recoilless cannon, the firing principle of the rapid-fire cannon is similar to that of ordinary cannons. The propellant is ignited in the barrel, and the blast wave pushes the bullet out along the barrel. This means that the noise emitted by this kind of cannon blast wave is much higher than the previous 2. And that noise can also quickly transfer to Anya's shoulder along the solid barrel and explode near her ears. If Anya hadn't been successful in magic and used the magic shield to protect her ears when she found something wrong, she would have been deafened. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Infinite Doomsday Start draws Luodu mechanic. Author, Shan Mao Ai-Chi-Ji. Chapter 166. However, the huge noise is only one aspect. The noise is so loud, is the recoil of this gun still small? If it is small enough, would Ruger have planned to make her a set of shoulder armor first, and then build a gun mount based on that thing? As a result, although Anya was not directly hit by the cannon and flew backwards like in the cartoon, the huge force on her shoulder still made her blood boil. Anya is a great wizard whose main skill level has entered the high level. Although she is not good at muscles and bones, she is a serious Nephilim after all, and her physical ability is far better than that of ordinary people. But even so, the recoil of this rapid-fire cannon almost made her spit out a mouthful of blood. Combined with the noise, it is really a miserable thing that she bleeds from all 7 orifices after firing a shot. She finally recovered here, and saw the instigator looking like he was watching the fun and not minding the trouble. He smacked his lips and sighed, "Anya, your small body is good. I thought you would fly directly. This bastard really did it on purpose." Anya couldn't bear it any longer. She didn't care how many times she had reminded herself to be careful of this guy. She immediately turned the muzzle of the gun towards him. Anyway, according to the experience of the last shot, it was nothing more than a stronger recoil and a louder noise. It's not like she couldn't bear it, and she could use magic to alleviate it. But this opportunity to blast that bastard in the face was unique. There was no guarantee that there would be a next time after today. This time, she was determined to give that guy a hard time. Seeing Anya really move the muzzle towards her, Ruger, who hadn't put on the Iron Man armor, immediately became very ugly. You, what are you going to do? I warn you, you are killing your father, do you know? You. Shut up. Anya heard that he was still taking advantage of her at this time, and she was furious and immediately pulled the trigger. There was a click, and then, nothing happened. Who am I? Where am I? What happened? Anya looked confused, and felt that at least one of the world and herself was abnormal. What happened? Where is the sound of the cannon? Where is the shell? The shell hit the bastard's flesh and blood, blowing him to pieces. Why is there nothing? Hoo, little Anya, you dare to murder your own grandfather, you are really brave. Ruger changed his previous panic at this time, and instead looked like a conspiracy succeeded, smiling sinisterly. Hee, do you think I'm stupid? I've been prepared for your trick. As he said, he held up a set of iron boxes in his hands, and inside were 30mm machine gun shells as big as forearms. You only have one shell in the barrel, ha, didn't expect it? Hoo, someone's dinner, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, just say goodbye. It's over, this guy really did it on purpose. Why am I so stupid, why did I fall for this guy again? Anya's heart was bleeding again. She wanted to cry but had no tears. She almost cried bloody tears. It was the first time for the 4 rogues over there to hear about this complicated relationship. They didn't understand what was going on. But the problem was that they didn't dare to ask. The 4 girls looked at each other and finally confirmed one thing, that man was too perverted. It was better not to provoke him. Otherwise, maybe I would be in Anya's position and be played by him in various ways. Too miserable, too miserable. As for changing guns and so on, I'd better go to Tia to buy them after the mission is over. At least Tia's alchemy workshop is genuine and fair. And Tia, seeing that Ruger's ulterior motives were exposed and Anya was beaten up again, was quite satisfied with the result. Seeing Sarah's suspicious look, she simply explained the Akara version of Ruger and Anya's relationship to her bit by bit. Blood Crow Sarah was speechless when she heard this. She looked at Anya, who was being bullied by Ruger on the field, and felt a bit amused. However, when she turned her head to look at Ruger, the brilliance in her eyes flashed again. Hit by this incident, Anya finally calmed down. She didn't gossip with the 4 sisters of Rog, nor did she dare to get too close to Ruggy. She could only hide at the back and continue to do some auxiliary work of cleaning the battlefield. By the way, she took the opportunity to sort out the monster corpses and looked for food on them. In short, it was pitiful. Ruggy left the impression of a big devil on Rog with his actual actions. The MP5 girls who had planned to develop some super friendship with him before stopped directly. Influenced by this, Rog temporarily gave up getting better guns from him, and the efficiency of the march was greatly improved. Soon, the team whose morale was boosted by Ruggy's unconventional means quickly broke through to the third floor of the underground maze. Even if it was still daytime outside, the light would hardly reach here, not to mention that it was already late at night. If it weren't for the torches on the wall, it wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that it was so dark here that you couldn't see your hand in front of you. It was completely realistic. Under such lighting conditions, everyone's alert range could only be further reduced. As we went deeper into the dungeon, there were more and more monsters in the maze. Fortunately, most of them were still about the same strength as their compatriots on the first and second floors. But there were also a small number of them that turned into elite monsters. To deal with these guys, Ruger was not polite. He lowered the muzzle of the G28 in his hand and directly replaced it with the 30mm rapid-fire cannon. Unless they have the ghost affix and have extremely high physical attack immunity, they are still not the enemy of Ruger's one shot. However, an accident still occurred. Just as everyone was firing at the endless bloody sheep-headed people and blue-skinned dark shooters/dark sneaks in front of them, with a series of creepy wailing sounds, a team of monsters with other appearances actually passed through the wall and went around the back of the team. This group of strange monsters with bright white main bodies kept emitting blue light like fluttering ribbons. At first glance, these things seemed to be some special flying birds in the form of spirits. But after a closer look, it was discovered that their so-called main body was simply the upper body of a human skeleton. All parts of them, including the hip bones, were cut off from below the spine. The reason why they give people a feeling of being like birds is that the 3 fingers at the end of their arms are enlarged to be particularly long. As they floated in the air, their arms and fingers kept making a swimming-like movement. Coupled with the blue ribbon-like light waves on the outside of their bones, it felt like a bird flapping its blue wings. The first person to discover these guys must be Old Noisy. And its discovery meant that Lugger and Tia also discovered these things. Lugger heard the alarm and immediately turned the muzzle to fire. As a result, this shot did not kill the blue bird-like spirit skeleton monster. Even the whining of the spirit skeleton seemed to have turned into something like laughter for a while, mocking him for not being able to do anything to himself. Infinite Doomsday Start draws Luodu mechanic. Author, Shanmao Aichiji. Chapter 167. Oh my god, you are actually being laughed at by such a thing? I can't bear it. When Lugger saw that the thing was obviously as ugly as Grandma's house, yet it dared to mock him, he immediately. I was attracted to hate the pest. Fortunately, he still had some sense here. He put a high explosive incendiary bomb in the barrel and fired another one there. At the same time, Tia's high-speed grenades also arrived at the same time, and there was another sea of fire. A range attack immediately burned the team of spirit half-skeletons that sneaked over and made them scream. Lugger finally knew their real names. Searched can on Google. Kill undead creatures ghost nightmare level and gain 40 points. The points are neither too many nor too few. Compared to the ammunition used, that's a lot. Compared with the points gained by using ammunition with the same points under normal circumstances, it is less. Sure enough, the weird monsters are the most troublesome to deal with. Thinking that these guys would be quickly eliminated by Tia's sea of fire, Lugger quickly turned his gun to help Lugger deal with the enemies in front. Without the heavy fire support of Luktia and the other two, the monsters pouring out from the depths of the maze were too much pressure for 4+1 ROG. Although Sarah has not transformed at this time, she has already drawn her spear and is on the front line, using the small space at the entrance and exit of the maze passage to forcefully block the enemy there. But as there are more and more monsters in the rear, especially long-range units like dark shooters, Sarah is under increasing pressure. Lugger fired a cannon, just enough to penetrate a dark attacker holding a machete, and also kill the dark shooter behind it. Instantly relieved half of Sarah's pressure. In Lugger's view, the chaos caused by the ghost team that can walk through walls has finally come to an end. He has also asked the old man above him to closely monitor this special type of monster. Notify him immediately after discovering it, so that he can use high explosive incendiary bombs in advance to deal with these things. However, he only fired 2 more shots when he felt a cold wind blowing behind him. His whole body shuddered subconsciously and he immediately turned around and went back. At the same time, he also received a warning from Laoneokeo and a miserable scream. "What the hell is this? Get out of here." When she turned around, she happened to catch up with Anya, who had been hanging in the team, looking at a half-skeleton ghost on the edge of the sea of fire in front of her with her mouth wide open. However, the girl subconsciously fired several frost novas in succession. Circles of ice magic spread out like ripples in a lake, hitting the ghosts in the sea of fire, causing them to scream. "No, no, no, that's not screaming at all, that's cheering," just like the refugees who have been thirsty for several days in the desert suddenly see heavy snow, cheering. It seems that not only are these guys not afraid of the attack of ice magic, but they are quite happy with it. At the same time, the sea of flames created by Lugger and Taya with ammunition was almost extinguished under the impact of this wave of ice magic. There was only a little spark left, still swaying tenaciously in the cold wind. Okay, then Anya's few shots of Frost Nova magic saved those ghosts twice. Not only did he directly rescue them from the sea of fire, but he also directly used his own magic power to help them regain their strength. Lugger became anxious when he saw this situation, and immediately fired a high explosive incendiary bomb at the ghost who was still yelling face to face with Anya. Finally, he caught up with the thing and bit Anya directly, beating it to pieces. Only. Kill undead creatures ghosts nightmare level excited state, get 45 points. Good guy. The ice demonic energy sent out by Anya not only did not hurt them, but also provided them with a benefit. Taking a closer look at the description, it seems to increase attack power, movement speed, and attack speed. Fortunately, there is no defense or physical limit gain added to them. Lugger's shot exploded in front of her face. As soon as she saw the fire, Anya once again fired a few Nova spells in a panic. As a result, even the last flame was extinguished. The remaining ghosts became even more excited, slapping their forelegs and flying around Anya. Seeing this situation, Taya couldn't throw away the big incendiary pineapple she just took out, so she could only take it back first. The ammunition in her high-speed grenade is also a big bomb. If it is used at this time, more than half of the power will be used on Anya, which is not good. She was scratching her head when she heard Lude shouting from beside her, "Go to support Sarah's side first, don't let the monsters over there rush over." She was about to ask what should you do, when she saw Lugger activated the rocket booster in his leg armor again and rushed towards Anya like the wind. Seeing this situation, she stopped asking any more questions, turned around and fired a few incendiary bombs at the monster in front of her, setting off a wall of fire in the opposite area. The situation on the front line has stabilized again. On the rear front, Lugger rushed towards Anya, shooting at the ghosts blocking the way while correcting his route. Soon, he held Anya in his arms and escaped from the siege with the help of rocket boosters. At the same time, he also used his backhand to leave a few round iron lumps in Anya's original position, which were the big incendiary pineapples produced by Taya. Puff puff puff. Several explosions belonging to the incendiary pineapples sounded continuously, and another sea of fire ignited on the spot. The high-temperature flames that ignited immediately made the ghosts scream again. 1, 2, and 3. Finally, 5 ghosts in an excited state actually provided Ruger with more than 200 points. However, when the rocket booster fuel ran out and he stopped again, he found that Anya in his arms had fainted. A moment later, after all the monsters on this floor were wiped out, Tia came over to check her and said, "Well, the ghost sucked all her energy dry, and she was extremely panicked. This is a combination of exhaustion and fear." "She won't die, right?" Ruger asked hurriedly. She won't die. Tia waved her hand, but she may not die. Huh, Ruger was just wondering, and saw Tia took out a water bottle and took a big sip. She didn't swallow it, and spit it out to Anya. Ah! Who am I? Where am I? What happened? Anya, this unlucky child, this is the second time in a short period of time that she has asked 3 questions about life. Seeing her confused face, Tia smiled and told her all the previous situations. She also emphasized the following: after being frightened, she used instant frost nova magic continuously, which not only made her weak, but also made the monster more excited, making it easier to absorb her mana. Her mana had been squandered by herself, and she didn't replenish it in a short time. As a result, even her energy and physical strength were sucked dry, and she finally fainted. Hearing her unprofessional performance from Tia, Anya's face turned red instantly. This expression is unique for an ice mage. Soon, Anya's face turned pale again, and she seemed to have lost the motivation to live. I won't live anymore. Woo woo woo. Infinite Doomsday Start draws Luodu mechanic. Author, Shan Mao Ai Chi Ji. Chapter 168. In the end, Anya didn't die. After all, she was still in Ruger's arms, being aimed at by someone with a treatment needle at any time, so it was difficult for her to die. I hope readers will remember our domain name Taiwan Novel Network rightward arrow. It's just that there is a kind of shame that not only can't help, but also hinder. Even though Anya kept emphasizing that she was just a prisoner of war, whether it was Tia Ruger or the Rojas over there, they all treated her as a teammate from the beginning. Not to mention, she also had an overly subtle relationship with that man. No matter how she pretended to be indifferent, in fact, the Rojas took care of her along the way. In this era, Nephilim can no longer survive on their own. All survivors of the apocalypse know the importance of teammates, know to trust teammates, and at the same time, try to win the trust of teammates. This is true even for the Nephilim supremacists who secretly plot genocide. Racial discrimination and racial segregation are not about not wanting to coexist with others, but about believing that some people are not worthy of coexisting with their own circle. They are not lonely, and may even be loving and cooperative in their own small circle. Therefore, even Anya, who was immersed in the team atmosphere along the way, gradually developed a new vague sense of belonging, or warmth. This time, because of her own mistakes, she not only failed to stop the enemy's sneak attack, but also strengthened their combat power to a certain extent, almost causing damage to the team she identified with. This blow to her was far more serious than being hurt by Lugger's prank. For the first time, she doubted her ability. Am I really that useless? Seeing her look of grief and despair, Rogli's most enthusiastic MP5 sister couldn't help but want to persuade her. But when she looked up at the big devil Lugger and thought about what to say, the MP5 sister felt a headache and retracted her foot that had just stepped out. She was like this, and the others didn't know what to do. The more this happened, the colder the wind blew around Anya, who was alone. The little guy seemed to be sealing himself in the ice. At this moment, Ruger, who had walked to the entrance of the passage that Sarah had blocked before, looked at the blazing flames on the other side of the passage and muttered. "It's bad. I just enlarged the fire a little bit to kill those monsters as soon as possible. It looks like, when the fire goes out, I'm afraid the air inside will also be burned out. It will take half a day or a day for the air to flow in slowly. What can I do? I didn't expect to be trapped by this. Oh, it would be great if I could put out these fires as soon as possible." When he first sighed there, everyone felt a little puzzled. When he was halfway through, several smart people had already understood. When he revealed his true intention and was about to say who can put out the fire, come out and help, everyone understood what he meant. And the MP5 girl was excited and was about to share what she had just figured out with Anya, But Anya had already rushed over like the wind. Yes, you want to put out the fire, right? No problem, watch me. After 2 or 3 seconds of chanting and charging, an ice ball shot out from Anya's hand. That thing looked like the size of a football, and it was not flying fast in the air, as if an invisible model was holding it in her arms and walking slowly on the catwalk. However, while this thing was moving, it kept firing ice pillars similar to ice spears around. Those ice pillars fell to the ground like javelins soon after they flew out, and the ice magic in them exploded like a high explosive bomb with a collision fuse, instantly extinguishing the flames in an area. This is the 6th level ice magic, Ice Ball. Anya likes to play ice hockey magic the most, so the form has changed a lot compared to the original magic. But anyway, this magic is very effective in large-scale fire extinguishing. The core ice ball that continuously shoots out icicles will also radiate icy magic to the surroundings. In this way, the flames that were not completely extinguished but suppressed when the icicles burst will also tend to extinguish under the pressure of the ice ball magic. Moreover, it will also attack the place with the best concentration of fire elements. It can be called a natural fire extinguishing magic. Soon, the fire of the underground maze grease ignited by countless incendiary bombs of Ruger and Tia was extinguished by Anya. And Anya, who almost froze herself because she couldn't find the value of her existence before, quickly recovered her spirit. She still insisted that she was a prisoner of war and would not participate in the front line battle. But if it's about putting out a fire, just leave it to me. Yeah, not bad. Ruger nodded in agreement, but there's still no food to eat at night. Why? Anya got anxious when she heard that, but she immediately controlled herself and snorted, "Who cares?" But she turned her head and cried silently. "There's no food," Ruger continued leisurely, "but seeing that you're working so hard in the snow, you'll have plenty of ice cream." What? What? This time, not only Anya turned her head, but even Tia was anxious. Why can she not eat and only eat ice cream? Tia's eyes were red. But that was not grievance, nor was it anger. More like envy. "I want to eat ice cream too, I want to eat ice cream to my heart's content." Then, seeing that the most famous glutton in Rogtown for decades was actually like this, even the 5 Rogs, 1 big and 4 small, became deeply curious about the ice cream mentioned by Ruger. Seeing this, Ruger couldn't help but sigh deeply, feeling that leading a team of all girls was really tiring. After he had no choice but to prepare a portion of vanilla chocolate ice cream for each girl, everyone was captivated by this special taste. Not to mention Tia, who had already eaten it. Rog was clamoring for another portion. "Hey, this is Anya's dinner." Ruger is very good at shifting the blame now, and immediately pointed at Anya and said, "If you eat more, she will eat less. Do you really want to let her starve just to satisfy your appetite? Besides, this thing is delicious, but it's not good for your health." This remark immediately convinced the Rogs. But Tia was not fooled, and immediately asked, "Since it's not good for the body, why do you want Anya to eat this thing as a meal? She is an ice mage, okay, she's not afraid of the cold," Ruger said unhappily. "I don't care, I don't care, I want to eat too, I want to eat as much ice cream as I can." Tia still didn't give up. "That's it, you can eat as much ice cream as you can." Ruger finally nodded helplessly. "Okay. But, your original dinner, those pork elbows, ribs, duck and roast goose, give them to Anya." "What? No, don't." Tia was shocked, looked at the ice cream in her hand, looked at Anya, and then looked at Ruger, and quickly handed the ice cream back to Anya. "Here, your dinner, enjoy it." You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Infinite Doomsday Start draws Luodu mechanic. Author, Shan Mao Ai-chi-ji. Chapter 169. Of course, In the end, Ruger didn't really give Anya only ice cream for dinner. Google search reading. Although the coldness of this thing is nothing for an ice mage, and its high-calorie content is enough to provide sufficient energy for a Nephilim, it is a bit miserable after all. Google searched can. In the end, it was the kind-hearted Tia who saved a part of her rations and gave it to her. Half a roast goose with sour plum sauce. She originally gave away a whole goose, but the fragrant smell made her tears flow from her mouth. Anya was afraid of her, so she quickly gave her the half that she had just cut with a knife. Although, there was a circle of food next to her. In short, after the series of events, Anya accepted her position as a human fire extinguisher and stopped making trouble. After dinner and a little rest, everyone entered the next level again. Blood-red goat-headed men, blue-skinned dark archers sneak attackers, and ghosts constitute a large army of monsters in the underground maze. In addition, there is a yellow-skinned little demon that is very similar to the fallen demon. However, it is useless just like its red-skinned cousin. As everyone became familiar with their weapons, the rhythm of their teammates, and the frequency of the enemy's appearance, the speed of their charge increased again. It only took them a few dozen minutes to reach the bottom of the underground maze. However, as soon as they entered here, they were almost fainted by the unbearable stench here. Fortunately, because there were too many fire attacks on the road before, resulting in insufficient oxygen, Ruger also provided everyone with oxygen-supplying breathing masks that could support about 5 minutes. However, the more annoying thing is still to come. Such a strong stench obviously has a source. Not long after they walked, they found that there were not only countless medieval torture instruments densely arranged here, but also rotten flesh and blood on almost every blade torture instrument. What torture rack, pillory, iron wheel, and even the legendary Iron Maiden. Obviously, the owner here, the Bloody Countess, enjoys the SM game with her spoils. It's just that this game has been restored to the medieval era and has returned to its cruel and bloody appearance. If it were just the rotten meat hanging on the iron nails, the smell here wouldn't be so strong. After walking for a while, everyone saw a blood pool as big as an indoor swimming pool in the center of an open underground hall. Yes, a blood-colored swimming pool made entirely of human blood. But the stench of decay and deterioration condensed and evaporated on the surface of the pool and spread around. And around the blood pool, there were several female bodies tied to torture instruments, whose bodies had been completely dissected and whose hearts were still beating, struggling in pain. But their eyes looking at the blood pool were full of desire. Just as the rogues were about to rescue the people on the torture instruments, the woman on the torture platform covered with steel nails, which was closest to the blood pool, tried to shake the wooden torture platform, and she and the platform fell into the pool together. A moment later, she climbed out of the blood pool, and her skin, which had been made inhuman by the steel nails and whips, completely recovered to its original tightness. But the color completely turned into ice blue, which represents death. This is the core of the Bloody Countess to transform the captives into dark half-demons. The blood pool. Tia said in amazement. As soon as she shouted, the bloody women on the torture instruments fell into the blood pool one after another, completed the last step of transformation and climbed ashore, and followed the half-demons in front to run deep into the maze. What are they doing? Take weapons, or find a large army, Rogue said gloomily. Anyway, they are already monsters, don't show mercy. But, seeing this tragic situation, the rogues felt a kind of sadness. After all, although they didn't know those women, from a probability perspective, the most likely human women captured by the Bloody Countess were Rog, who was fighting on the front line against the monsters. But Rog knew that they were mostly humans. Because when he saw those people, the system also reminded him that the task of finding the whereabouts of the abducted female human resistance soldiers had been completed. This time, Rog really didn't care much about the 500 points reward for completing this task. Although he had long guessed in his heart that they had been out of contact for many days and were most likely in danger, or even transformed into monsters, it still felt different to see their miserable condition with his own eyes. The bloody Countess must die. Ruger secretly swore to himself, but turned to Rog and advised, maybe they have died long ago and have been transformed into monsters long ago. Maybe, the scene just now was deliberately performed for us by the bloody Countess. It is to make us think that they can still be saved, and then restrain our hands and feet in the battle and dare not exert our full strength. In that case, I am afraid it won't be long before we are the ones who are transformed into monsters. There is evidence for his words. The most direct evidence is why the monster side showed such an important thing as the blood pool directly to everyone, but did not send troops to defend it. You know, in the maze on the previous level, everyone killed a lot of monsters, but why didn't they encounter any attacks on this level? Well, Ruger is right. Sarah was the first to agree with Ruger's judgment. We must be careful. Since they are all controlled by demons, we should help them free themselves as soon as possible. These words were said with murderous intent, but they made Rog change his previous sadness and become more united with the enemy. But now that things have come to a point, there is something that can be done. Seeing Sarah looking towards him, Luger immediately nodded, turned around and grabbed Taya, who was still checking the terrain. How's it going? Are you ready? Why do it now? Shouldn't we kill that guy first? Tia was confused. Look at the current terrain. If we want to continue moving forward, we must cross the blood pool, Luger explained. But the strong stench of corpse gas on the blood pool may be difficult to deal with. What's more, if the opposite side sets up such an empty city formation for us, wouldn't there be other backup plans waiting for us? In that case, why should we risk crossing that pool? Wouldn't it be better to just flatten it? Flat, Taya asked again. You mean, filled it in? Right. Use those, Taya pointed to the ceiling. Right. Luger smiled and said, how about it? Can you do it? No problem, Tia nodded. Then, start from the first floor. Yes, start from the first floor. Understood. Taya called to Lao Naok Xiao, who was still on guard on the ceiling, turned around and walked towards the stairs. You'd better come up too, be careful of accidental injuries. Rog and the others looked at each other in confusion, not knowing what they were talking about. Fortunately, they also have Commander Sarah, and Blood Crow Sarah is the one who originally formulated this ultimate action plan with Luodu. Infinite Doomsday Start draws Luodu mechanic. Author, Shan Mao Ai Chi. Chapter 170. Remember what I told you. What is the main goal of this operation? Sarah took the 4 rogues and walked back behind Ruger, saying at the same time. Remember, Captain Sarah said to destroy the monster nest here, so that the monsters on the front line will lose their source of troops. Miss HK21 answered first. That's right, Sarah nodded. So, now that we are here, we can deal with the nest. Google searched can. The so-called deal with is to blow it up. The underground monster nest is buried in all directions by the world fragments rich in magic, so it will naturally breed stronger monsters. That is, nightmare-level monsters. And because of the open air on the ground, ordinary monsters will degenerate to a state that is not much stronger than ordinary people. In this case, the best way to deal with monster nests is to blow them up and lead to the ground, so that the high concentration of magic inside can spread to the open air, thereby weakening the monsters. This is Sarah's original plan. When he heard her plan, Ruger joked that this was the sequelae of coming back from the underground city. Did he also like digging holes? However, Sarah did not object. Instead, she nodded seriously and said that one day, she would also use the method she had thought of to deal with the ghost dungeon. However, connecting the monster nest in the dark world fragment to the ground is to allow the high concentration of magic inside to spread out. And connecting the ghost dungeon to the ground is to allow the low concentration of magic outside to spread in. When the magic concentration decreases, the monster will weaken. And when the magic concentration rises from 0, it will also weaken the ghost. At least, their flying mobile phone commanders will be unable to exert their original command effect because the magic radiation shields the radio. Ruger had to say that Sarah's idea was beautiful. She found the so-called golden mean in the hazy. The magic is too high, and the strengthening effect on monsters is higher than that of Nephilim, which is not good for Nephilim. If the magic concentration is too low or even no magic, the advantage of the Nephilim against the ghost will be gone, which is not good. Finally, it is better to destroy the small world underground and connect it to the outside world, and take the median concentration, which can maximize the advantage of the Nephilim. After explaining the strategic goals to the 4 subordinates, Sarah took them to join the industry to help Tia. For things like demolishing a house, is there anyone more suitable than Tia, the bomb girl? However, the high-end technology of directional blasting is still a little difficult for Tia. But fortunately, she has Lao Zhao. Lao Zhao, who can pass through walls like a ghost, can also drill into the floor to check the building structure inside. With the information detected by Lao Zhao, and then restore the building structure into a picture on the Ruger phone, you can use the existing software to find the best blasting point. After that, you only need to drill holes in the corresponding places, put explosives, and start blasting. It doesn't matter if electronic chips, radios, etc. can't be used. Just use a simple wired circuit to make a detonator and connect it to each explosive. Finally, after the 8 people arranged the explosives and returned to the ground of the Forgotten Tower, Tia pressed the pressing handle of the mechanical pressing electric detonator like an air pump. Boom! With loud noises, the old broken walls and ruins on the ground of the Forgotten Tower also collapsed. However, they did not press down the passage of the underground tomb, but all scattered and fell around. At the same time, a large hole leading to the underground was exposed on the ground. The ceiling of the ground and underground floor was actually collapsed directly. However, this is only the first floor. The explosions in the cave continued, and the sawdust and lime on the ground became thicker and thicker. And the cave was getting deeper and deeper. Finally, with the sound of a huge rock falling into the water from the underground, everyone even saw a few drops of rotten black blood splashed on the ground. The black blood splashed onto the grass on the ground, and it carbonized the poor weeds directly like concentrated acid. Seeing this scene, even Tia couldn't help but say in astonishment, "Brother Lu, you really guessed it, there is something wrong with that blood pool. If we really forced our way over just now, I'm afraid we would also become like this, right?" "What kind of thing?" "Carbonized into charcoal." Although they could only see the few drops of rotten blood splashing out of the blood pool on the ground, Tia had the extra eyes of Lao Guozhao. She even got information from Lao Guozhao faster than Ruger. Ruger had to either listen to Lao Guozhao's own narration or see the picture information reproduced after it entered the mobile phone. But Tia could directly share Lao Guozhao's vision and even memory, and quickly get the information. Just now, Lao Guozhao followed the collapsed ceiling and ground and dived down little by little. It just happened to witness the spectacular scene of the last layer of ceiling falling into the blood pool with the layers above. How to say it, what was carbonized instantly was not only the wild grass on the ground, but also all the places covered by the rotten blood, including the wooden torture instruments at the bottom. At this time, after several layers of ceilings filled the blood pool, a raging fire had ignited there again. And the fuel for the flame was everything that had been carbonized by the magic blood. "What's the situation?" Sarah saw Ruger take out his mobile phone again to check the information brought back by Lao Ke, and immediately came over to ask. He had used this trick a lot in the ghostly dungeon, and Sarah had known about it for a long time. Ruger showed Sarah the diagram before the phone chip was completely destroyed by the magic radiation, and quickly recovered the phone and exchanged it for a new one. He relied on this trade-in method to force the phone to be used in the magic-filled area. It's a pity that this trick can only be used on the phone he holds in his hand at any time, and it can't be spread out. So, the blood pool has now become a sea of fire. Sarah has good eyesight and remembered the key points on the map in just a blink of an eye. That's right, Ruger nodded. I'm not sure if it's an ordinary flame or a special version made by the other party. What should we do? Sarah asked again. Throw a stone to test the water. Ruger smiled, turned around and waved to Anya next to him. This time, use the chain ice balls you used in Rogue Town to smash the sea of fire. Can you do it? Let me see. Anya heard the words, turned around and walked towards the dungeon, but was pulled by Tia. Don't worry, I'll go with you. As she said that, Tia took out a set of ropes to tie the two of them up, and then nailed a few long nails into the ground, tied the other end of the rope, and then pulled Anya up and carefully moved towards the cave. Seeing her like this, Anya was a little unconvinced at first. But after all, Tia had been dealing with her since she was a child, and she knew where she was going when she raised her eyebrows. Seeing this, the bomb girl didn't say much, picked up a piece of waste historical materials weighing dozens of kilograms from the ruins of the completely collapsed forgotten tower, and threw it towards the cave.